It's pretty safe to say, God give it, God take it away. It's the worldwide American way. I'm living.
What's going on, team? Proof here, and today I'm here with the third part of my Crazy 8 and Around G-Guard series, and today I'm bringing you Nubatama. Nubatama recently got a new Disruptive G-Guard in set GBT 11, and his name is Ricardo Stealth Dragon Gyurakan. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's how I'm going to say it throughout the video, so forgive me if it's wrong. And what Gyurakan does is Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1. When this unit is placed on guard circle, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's grade 1 rear guards in the back row, dominate it, and move it to the guard circle. So that's relevant for us because that means they can target down Frog Raider, which is pretty much the crux of our combo turns because he gets really big and start putting that pressure on the opponent with massive power boost behind it. And if they can dominate it, get it out the way, we need to replace it, or otherwise our turn is a lot less powerful. We can probably still get through, but we like to have Frog Raider around just because it makes it easier to get through. So what that means for us is that we need to find a way to maneuver our way back into having a Frog Raider on board if they use Gyurakan to dominate one. Luckily for us, I've been looking at some recent Nubatama deck lists, and they only really use 2 Gyurakan because they make space for flipping G-Guards from Fighters Collection, and I think they use one other one which helps them gain shield value just to make it easier to block. So what that means for us is that we need to be able to have all 3 Frog Raiders available either in our deck or in our hand, so that way we can play around them using 2 Gyurakan and then having that third one stick on the board for us to be able to push through for the rest of our turn. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put up a setup, and I'm going to show you how to play around them if you have Frog Raider and if you don't have Frog Raider. So in hand, I should say, at the beginning of your turn, at the beginning of your 8th turn. So I'm going to set that up and I'll be right back with that. Alright, so say this is something like our setup when we go into our turn. What we want to do is that we want to set up the classic Denial Griffin formation, which is where we have Frog Raider here, a unit here, and then something over here in the opposite front row. And what we want to do is, in our first step, we want to attack with the frog side here, give it the 8 skill to the unit in the front row. And we're going to continue doing this. Well, after that, after the battle, we're going to put him into the soul, put a card into our soul, open our deck, and preferably we're going to call out an on-hit unit in front of the Frog Raider again. And we repeat this process until they drop down one of their Gyurakans, or until they just lose the game if they don't have it, or we have to attack with Vanguard because we're down to 1 card in our hand. Let's attack here, give the 8 skill to lethal forward, and then let's assume that they drop Gyurakan here. So he gets dominated and now he goes away, and then we put the lethal into the soul with another card in our soul and from our hand to the soul, and we call out a Frog Raider behind Millie here. And then from here we attack. We repeat the process until the second G-Guard comes down or until we have to attack with Vanguard. So let's assume they use Gyurakan here. This frog goes away, Millie goes into the soul along with a card from our hand, and now we get the last Frog Raider out. And then we attack with Vanguard, use Rising skill, call out a unit in front of Frog Raider here, get our nice handy triple drive action going. And of course we give the 8 skill to Frog here at this point because there's no more Gyurakans to worry about, ideally. And then we continue on attacking here until, and giving the 8 skill to the unit in the front row until our opponent either loses, or we run out of cards in hand, or we run out of charges in deck, or some form or fashion that way. And that's pretty much it when it comes to playing around it in that form or fashion. You can set up to where you can attack with Vanguard first to put cards back into your hand, but that requires having Axe Diver in hand as far as my simulations have gone, because you can use Axe Diver skill to bind and recall one of the units, and that kind of opens you back up to giving you some flexibility around your setup, because you can bind and recall something to the front row and now you kind of set up the formation again, and it helps you play around it a little bit better. So if you have Axe Diver, you have more flexibility with your setup. If you don't have Axe Diver in your deck, you want to set it up the way I just showed you here. And now I'm going to pause it. I'm going to come back and show you how to play around the G guards if you don't have Frog Raider at the start of your turn. All right, so for the purposes of playing around Gyorokon, if you don't have Frog Raider, unfortunately it requires you to have Axe Diver in your deck, as with the previous Impede example. I have not been able to find a way to play around both Gyorokons if you don't have Axe Diver in your deck. So if you are playing against Nubatama and you know you don't have Axe Diver, it is imperative that you figure out a way for them to force them into using one of their Gyorokons without sacrificing a Frog Raider in the process. Because what that does is that it makes it easier to play around the idea of not having Frog Raider if you know you only have one Gyorokon that your opponent has. It's easy if your opponent only has one Gyorokon remaining. So keep that in mind with your deck building and putting things together. Axe Diver's usability is becoming more and more important when it comes to playing around these guys, just because of his ability to bind and recall one of your units. So with that in mind, if you don't have Frog Raider, you want to set up your formation something like this. These two units can be anything pretty much. And this is exactly like the Denial formation, just minus the Frog Raider. So we're going to attack with the boosted side first, giving the 8 skill to the unit in the front row. And then after the battle, we're going to put him into the soul, put a card from our hand into the soul, and we're going to get out our Frog Raider here. And then after that, we're going to attack with this side here, giving the 8 skill to the unit in the front row again. After the battle, put him into the soul, put this guy into the soul, call out Axe Diver, and then Axe Diver uses his ability to Soul Blast, Counter Blast, bind the unit in the opposite back row, and we're going to call it to the front row, and now it can attack again. And now we put ourselves back into our previous formation to be able to set ourselves up to attack and get around the G guards and whatnot from there. And it's followed the exact same model as I presented you just a little bit ago with the previous setup, assuming you had Frog Raider. And if your opponent drops G guards before you bring down the Axe Diver, that kind of helps you out anyway. And I'm sure you'd be able to simulate that in your mind to be able to figure out a way around it. I trust you guys, 'cause I know you guys are smart. So that's basically the two main ways to play around it. I know I kind of went through it a little bit quickly, but a lot of it is similar to playing around Impede and Denial Griffin with your setups. The key is to see how many cards in your hand if you need to attack with Vanguard sooner, and be able to formulate your attack patterns around it. It's also dependent on if your opponent drops their Disruptive G guards before your Hellheart 8 turn, because that puts another wrinkle into the I guess you call it formula as well. So there's a lot of variables going on. I kind of wanted to simplify it up just to show you guys that it's possible to do so. If you guys have any questions about it, definitely leave me a comment down below, and I'll try to help you out as best as I can. And the one thing I want to mention before I wrap this up is that if you have a Frog Raider that gets trapped in hand on your triple drive, that makes having Hivemaker that much more imperative, because it gives you the flexibility to call out the Frog Raider after the fact without having to worry about that it's trapped in hand. So definitely keep an eye on your Frog Raider count, keep an eye on your Axe Divers, your Hivemakers. Keep an eye on Axe Diver if you play it, because he's important for certain formations to happen. Just keep an eye on those main units, and it should give you a nice key to victory. So hope you enjoy. I hope this helps somebody out going into their Bushiroad events coming up, especially with Dominate on the horizon being released now. And until next time, guys, peace. Be easy.